Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Lyoko Retrospectives. And today we're going to be discussing episode 25 of Code Lyoko / the penultimate episode of Season 1, Code Earth. And, well, they finally do it. The group finally manages to create a devirtualization program for Aelita. There's no room for error. There's no mix-up. There's no trial where things go wrong or where they have a successful run but then things get bugged up. No. They actually create a proper devirtualization program for Aelita, meaning that she can finally come to Earth. And yes, the group is overjoyed by this. As such, once they manage to, and pretty much with this new knowledge, the group is pretty much preparing for Aelita's eventual arrival. They end up creating cover stories with their family, with the families and the school to try and get her so that she has a place where she can live. In this case, they're going to set her up in Yumi's house, and they end up creating a fake ID. They end up creating a fake ID for her by saying that she's Odd's cousin, and which they do by having Odd fake a paper from his parents, which for some reason the school doesn't verify, but whatever. And pretty much it just seems like that they're finally going to actually be able to do it. And pretty much all they need to do is that Aelita needs to get to a transfer tower in the forest sector of Lyoko, and then Jeremy has to just load the devirtualization program into the computer, and, well, boom, everything's hunky-dory. However, they do still have some eventual problems. In this case, it turns out that over the course of the season, Jim has been keeping an eye on the group, and pretty much he's been noticing when they've come and go, that they've kind of been. He's noticed when they've run off and kind of disappeared. In the case, such as when they go to the factory for some basic stuff or whatever. I'm kind of wondering how that works, considering that thanks to the return to the past function, they usually can undo all their visits to the factory. But I'm guessing that maybe they could have gone there at certain points to do maintenance, check up on things, actually do some proper tests, etc. They could have gone to the factory for a number of reasons. But bottom line, pretty much Jim has noticed them running off to the park / factory, and while he doesn't know what they're doing, he thinks that there is some reasoning behind it, and he thinks that the kids are and in his mind, he thinks that the kids are just up to trouble. As such, the group, in their typical way, do try to cover it up as best as they can, but pretty much Jim is just getting more and more suspicious of them, to the point where when the group actually is heading off to class before they devirtualize Aelita, he confronts them and wants to know exactly what they're doing, and the only reason that he doesn't get anything out of them is because the principal arrives and tells Jim to knock it off. As such, the group thinks they're in the clear, and of course Aelita goes right to the forest sector to go to the tower, but of course Xana's not willing to let Aelita go. Hold on a second. Sorry about that, had to take care of a distraction. But anyway, yeah. Pretty much like I said, Xana doesn't want to let Aelita go, as when she goes to the tower, it turns out that it's being guarded by a few blocks, and as we've established, Aelita doesn't really have much in the way of offensive abilities, so she immediately calls the group for help. Each of them finding ways to get out of class so they can to go see Aelita. Yumi anyway. She's the only one that has to create a fake excuse, whereas Jeremy, Odd, and Ulrich all pretty much just get out of class at the regular time, and that just happens to coincide with when Aelita calls them. As such, they all go to the factory, and Aelita just tells them what's going on, and so Ulrich, Odd, and Yumi all go into Lyoko to help her out, and Jeremy gets gets the program ready to devirtualize Aelita. Only it's not the program. You see, when Jeremy finally finalized the program, he downloaded it onto a CD drive, and which he was showing off to Aelita in his room. He wound up putting it down, but when he wound up leaving the room, it wasn't the. The thing is, he wound up grabbing the wrong CD case, as there were actually multiple CD cases there on the table, and unfortunately the one he grabbed contained a CD which had a music video that Odd made about breakdancing. So yeah, pretty much this means that pretty much that means Jeremy has to head right back to the school and get the real program, and so the group has to pretty much kill time until he gets there, and which they ultimately do as Yumi, Ulrich, and Odd take care of the blocks and get Aelita into the tower, and then just wait it out. But both groups end up hitting their own problems while the group is waiting for Jeremy to come back, the tower ends up getting assaulted by a tank who's just unleashing blast after blast who's just unleashing blasts at the tower to try and take it down. And likewise in the real world, as Jerry makes his way back to Caddick, Jim sees him and decides that he's gonna corner him in his room, which he does as Jeremy goes to his room, grabs the real devirtualization program, but after leaving, Jim pretty much tells him there's nowhere else to run, the principal's not here to save you, you need to spill the beans. Jeremy ends up very much running for it while Jim runs after, but as Jeremy comes to a set of stairs, he ends up slipping and falling off the stairs, which results in him pretty much spraining his ankle. While Jeremy is brought to the infirmary and they do patch it up, they do say that he's not going to be walking on it for a while, and pretty much when the principal hears that when the principal hears that Jeremy sprained his ankle because Jim was chasing him, Jim pretty much loses his job, which, yeah, Jim is remorseful, not just for that, but just for injuring Jeremy in the first place. As such, once it's all said and done, as Jeremy's in the infirmary not wondering what to do, Jim comes in and pretty much just lays it all on the table and says he's sorry. He was so sure of it, but pretty much thanks to his paranoia, Jeremy's been injured and been hurt, and he pretty much just giving this whole spiel about how he wishes that he could make it right, and Jeremy starts smiling. As such, before Jim leaves, Jeremy pretty much tells him, "You weren't as paranoid as you thought," and Jeremy pretty much just lays it all on the table. He reveals to Jim that about Xana, Lyoko, and Aelita, and what the group has been doing, and about the devirtualization program. He tells Jim that if he says that by doing this he can explain to the principal what's going on, and Jim can get his job back. And Jim, for some reason, doesn't question it, but rather instead, upon hearing it, he instead helps Jeremy escape the infirmary, carrying him on his back as they run to the sewer entrance to the sewer grate that the group uses to get to the factory, and ultimately brings him to the factory, wherein they go to the lab, and I actually kind of like that Jim actually gets to see the computer room, and he's just kind of looking at it in pure awe, and what I find amusing is that how accepting he is of all this, as once he hears what the group's been doing, he's just kind of, it just seems like he's excited to actually be in on the action and doing all this, which is kind of weird, but whatever, Jim's kind of a doofus. But either way, yeah, Jeremy's able to get on the communicator, and he's able to make contact with the group again, telling them that he has the devirtualization program. The only problem is they're still dealing with the tank, and this one's kind of being a bit wilier than they usually are, as every time the group is about to get to the eye, it covers it up, and it begins pretty much one-shotting them. First taking out Odd, then Yumi, and all that's and pretty much just leaving Ulrich. Leaving Ulrich to deal with it. He eventually does manage to destroy it, but unfortunately Xana sent another tank in, and so Ulrich has to hold it back while Jeremy loads the program. Odd and Yumi end up get into the lab, and they see that Jeremy's with Jim now, but with Jeremy even telling him he's in the group now, which, yeah, if you've seen later seasons, you know that doesn't last, but. And based on his tone, he can tell he has the same thought. But bottom line, everything does manage to go to plan. As Ulrich tries holding back the attack from the tank as best as he can, and while it ultimately takes its toll and pretty much boots Ulrich out, ultimately the plan is successful. As Jeremy manages to load the program, and even though the tank manages to hit the tower with one last attack, and in the end, when everything is said and done, Aelita is devirtualized. The group goes to the scanner room, and the episode ends with Aelita huddled up in one of the scanner, and waking up to see the group standing over her with Jeremy telling her, "Welcome to Earth." So, yeah, pretty much. If I want to get into my thoughts on this episode, before I get my thoughts on this episode, I want to kind of make something clear because I probably should have said this at the beginning. This episode's kind of technically a two-parter because, like I said, this episode is the penultimate episode of season 1. The next episode is season 2, and based on how the episode ended, it does seem like it'll be kind of a two-parter. And as a result, I feel like if I want to give my full thoughts, I should probably talk about that one too. But that's gonna have to wait till next week. And as for what we have here in this episode, I actually kind of admit I like it. Mostly because it's finally getting to the main back to the. It's actually finally advancing the major main story again. As in this case, we finally see Jeremy, all of Jeremy's work that he's done throughout the season and trying to create a devirtualization program finally pay off. And like I said, there are no hiccups, there's nothing that bugs it up. He doesn't accidentally create the program, meaning he can't duplicate it. He actually manages to create actually create a program that can actually be utilized to devirtualize Aelita. And as a result, it's pretty much just trying to get it in motion, as the group is excited to do this because if Aelita is able to get out of Lyoko, they can just shut it off, and that's the end of Xana. Everything will be safe. Everything will be good. But of course, what makes it help is just kind of the tension that goes throughout the episode. Pretty much, it's just that they're this close. They finally have the program, but bit by bit, things start piling up. That gets in their way. Jim growing suspicious of them. Jeremy grabbing the wrong program. Xana sending out monsters to try and attack the tower that they need to get to devirtualize Aelita. Jeremy spraining his ankle. Jim getting it, and even Jim kind of losing. Jim losing his job. Pretty much all these things are there to help try and create more tension, and for the most part I think it works. And in a way, and really you do kind of get to it, kind of really does ease, you really do get into all of it as the episode continues on. You just keep watching, you're like, come on, because they are literally this close. The closest thing we've seen to Aelita being in the real world was pretty much the episode "The Girl of My Dreams," where Jeremy ran into the girl that happened to be that was pretty much Aelita's doppelganger. And again, and even then, that's only a technical basis because that wasn't really Aelita. It was just a girl that looked like her, and even she thought Jeremy was crazy and sent the police after him, or at least campus security, one of the two. Yeah, it was campus security thing. But bottom line, pretty much for them to finally be able to get it done, you kind of are like, okay, come on, we gotta do this. And it really does keep you on your toes as you see them actually getting closer and closer to trying, as you see them finally being able to get Aelita out of Lyoko. And another thing that I like, though, is the fact that we actually kind of have a major threat from the outside world. One of the things with Lyoko is that when it comes down to the A plot versus the B plot, usually one plot is favored over another because of what's going on in the episode. And so to actually have the stuff in the real world being part of the direct threat is rather interesting, and I like that. And seeing Jim grow suspicious is another thing that I like. Mostly because it means that it can involve him more in the plot and make him actually have him actually kind of help show what kind of a person he is. And in this case, while we do definitely see he's a doofus, he definitely is remorseful when his actions ultimately wind up leading to Jeremy getting injured. And when he learns the truth, while he's still a doofus, he's in full support. He helps Jeremy. He doesn't call him crazy. He actually listens to him. He's like a big kid, finally being able to play out his dreams of being a hero. And so when he learns that all of this is real, he's just cheering them on, helping them out. He's just cheering them on, getting Jeremy where he needs to go. And even is there when Aelita is devirtualized. It's actually really nice, and it makes you kind of, and it helps show that he is still a good guy, even if he is kind of a doofus. Which is why it's kind of unfortunate that he doesn't stay a cat, that he doesn't become a regular on the group. Yeah, I'm gonna spoil that right now. he doesn't become a regular. I've seen episodes that have happened after season 1, and he has, and in those episodes, he never has any encounters with the Lyoko. He doesn't know anything about Xana or where Aelita came from after ever again. He is pretty much just as oblivious as the rest of the teachers, which means that at some point in the near future, most likely in the next episode, there's going to be like a return to the past thing, and he's going to forget all of this, and they'll still have the program to devirtualize Aelita. Which, I'm sorry, that annoys me a little. I'm just going to say this right now. I kind of think it would be interesting if Jim was kind of a pseudo-member of their group. I don't think he would be like a full-fledged member of them, but at the same time, it would be kind of nice to see a dynamic where one of the teachers at the school is actively aiding the group in their as they deal with Xana. Like, not actually going into Lyoko because, well, lack of experience, but at the same time, but when Xana does attack, they can just say, "Hey, Jim, Xana's attack, help keep everyone in line. We gotta get to Lyoko." He could try covering for them, saying, "Oh, they're helping me, so you don't have to look for them." And again, you can pretty much say, "Well, what about? Well, they don't need to have a cover. The Return to the Past pretty much undoes all that." But again, it would be nice to have that crowd control. Though, to be fair, Jim pretty much would do that anyway, even if he didn't know about Xana. As in previous episodes, we have seen that whenever Xana attacks, he is there to try and aid the kids and keep them safe. So, I guess that may be nice. I'm just saying that I kind of would be nice to have that dynamic, to actually see Jim helping out the group while still being kind of a doofus. And I think it would make it even better. Maybe like in later episodes, if something bad does happen, then maybe he says, I need to get in there," and he actually kind of would actually virtualize. And even then, again, he'd be still like a pseudo member. Being it like during the day, he can help out. He can help and cover for them if they need to, or give them an excuse saying, "Hey." It's like, "Hey, I need Ulrich for something. I need you to excuse him from class," or something like that. And again, they could pretty much just cover their asses because, well, Jim was the one, because Jim's a teacher. Sorry, what I meant to say was because of the Return to the Past function. Pretty much, if the teachers start growing wise to what's going on, Return to the Past, then and Jim no longer has to worry about covering their asses because they've just taken care of Xana. Again, I would like to see, it would be interesting to see that, but when it comes down to the core Lyoko group, they don't really change that much throughout the series. And unfortunately, Jim, like I spoiled, after this episode, in later seasons, Jim is not a member of the group. He's back to being the oblivious doofus that doesn't know better. He's just Jim. And again, there's nothing wrong with him. It's just that, I don't know. I don't know. It would be still kind of nice to have that dynamic. But again, that's just me. And again, the episode, I feel, does have some nice tension. I suppose one problem with it, I guess, would be the ending, as it is nice seeing the tension building up and coming to a climax, but it just sort of stopped. But when Aelita is devirtualized, it does feel like it just ends. It's a defining moment. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's a really defining moment. This is the moment that we've been building to for the whole season. Finally getting Aelita out of Lyoko. But in a way, it kind of feels a little rushed, despite the tension. Like, because there is some good, because it does help build up the tension and when it does get down there, you're like, come on, you're so close, come on. In the way that Lyoko does it best. Like, when things look like they're just at their worst, that's when they finally save the day, and this is no exception. But unlike those episodes, there's like no brief epilogue afterwards. We see Aelita devirtualized and then like, "Welcome to Earth," and that's a good moment and it makes you kind of squee. But again, it feels like it just kind of comes up and then the episode ends. It doesn't stop, but again, it just ends. Again, I don't know. Maybe I'm nitpicking here. It feels like because again, it is nice actually seeing Aelita finally be devirtualized, and it is nice seeing it finally come to fruition. It's just I kind of wish that they did. It's just that I sort of wish that they were able to. Actually, I just wish that they kind of had a bit more fun. I just wish that maybe they could have had. I just wish that there could have been. I'm just saying that maybe they could have had like a little bit more. Like maybe actually see her talk and maybe like have a moment where she's adjusting to actually being in the real world now. So I don't know. But again, it could probably also be symptomatic of the fact that this is a two-part episode, and the episode after this could probably be actually talking about all this stuff. So yeah, I could easily just be talking out of my ass here, because as for this what this episode is, it is nice to see it finally all come to fruition, and for them to actually stop it, and for them to actually get it in motion. I suppose one major flaw is that maybe the Xana presence could have been better, as while the tanks are viable. I feel like that for as big an implication as getting Aelita out of Lyoko and possibly being able to shut down the computer, I feel like Xana would be throwing more stuff at them. I don't know. So I don't know. I don't know. That part was a little disappointing, I suppose. Just it feels like it, because Xana reacts the same way he would react any other time. Just send out a handful of monsters. If anything, maybe that army of monsters from the last episode could have been what he sent against them, but not this time. So, but yeah, as the first episode, as the beginning of a two-parter, it's interesting. Keeps the pace going. Ultimately comes to an interesting conclusion as they finally manage to devirtualize Aelita over, and again has some nice tension with stuff in the real world. I guess my major problems would be the lack of Xana presence, and how much he throws out there, and just kind of how abrupt the ending kind of is. Plus, again, the form of knowledge, the fact that Jim is going to forget Lyoko, which even based on Jeremy's dialogue and how he reacts, yeah, he knows it's going to happen, and he is not going to lose a bit of sleep over it. So, yeah, but that's pretty much just it. Nice episode, good two-parter. Finally nice to see it happen. Looking forward to see how they conclude. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and tune in next week as we look at the final episode of Code Lyoko Season 1 and figure out how exactly the show will continue on after they free Aelita. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Take care, everyone.